Welcome. Learning Science Goes Online is a series of short videos in which we analyze key findings from the education research literature and then connect those to the practice of designing and teaching online courses. In this video, we're going to be looking at the impact of student-driven planning and scheduling activities on outcomes in online courses. And the specific question we're going to address is, can scheduling nudges improve learners' study habits and then their academic outcomes in online courses? So the study of interest for this was done at a large online university with many students and across many different courses. And they used an experimental approach, which means in this case that there's a control condition in which there was no change and no manipulation to the students' activities, and a treatment condition. And in the treatment condition, the students were first exposed to some information about study habits. And that information included some tips about how studying can improve academic outcomes, and then the specific recommendations of this university with respect to students' study time. And this was followed by a very in-depth scheduling activity in which students looked at their calendars, they looked at their courses and their schedules, and then they planned to set aside a certain amount of time for studying for each of their courses. And this was integrated into a calendar where they actually set aside time. And that itself was then integrated with the university system so that students received reminders about their planned study and scheduled activities. This study was a pretty large-scale study, and in addition to looking at an online university, the investigators did the same study for in-person university classes. And so I wouldn't say that the breadth or depth of participants is a limitation, and this was done with real courses. But I do think one limitation here is that this wasn't compared with any other methods for trying to keep students on track. So let's dive into the data. What we're going to be looking at here is the average number of days logged in on the vertical axis and the week of the semester on the horizontal axis. So as we can see in the control condition, students started out strong. They were logging in many days a week. And this sort of tailed off over the semester, with a couple of peaks that are probably associated with final assignments. What we see in the treatment condition is essentially no difference. Even though the students had set aside a lot of time to plan particular study activities, they weren't found to be studying more when we look at the amount that they're interacting with their courses. Moreover, when academic outcomes were evaluated, specifically the number of courses completed, the time to complete courses, there was no difference in those outcomes either between the control and the treatment condition. And this is a little surprising and disappointing because this was a pretty major intervention. It involved students spending quite a bit of time to plan how they were going to invest their time academically, but there was no difference in outcomes. So this leads to some specific recommendations for you as an instructor. First of all, keep in mind that changing students' behavior is hard, and even asking them to commit to behavior change cannot necessarily lead to the outcomes that you want. So instead, what I would suggest is you think about structuring your courses to keep your students on track. First of all, make their effort and learning measurable. You can do this with assignments, projects, discussions, activities, but make sure that you can actually see the outcome of their learning. And then check in with your students. In particular, I'd be sure that you're checking in with your students who aren't following through on these measurable learning activities. And last but not least, I would strongly recommend that you build milestones into your course. This could include synchronous discussions where students are coming together at the same time to meet with you as the instructor, or it could include deadlines for assignments, projects, etc. that are keeping students on track across your entire course. Thanks for watching. You're free to reuse this video for internal training in your school, but please do not reuse it for any commercial purposes.